Hi muckers, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all doing very well. Okay, today's video is not great. Like, we do not have a good update whenever it comes to David Dobrik and Casey Neistat, and it's actually quite disgusting. But before we get into that, just to let you know that I'm going on tour in America in February. Tickets are on sale down below. I'm going to Chicago, LA, Seattle, Dallas, and New York. God, I was trying to think of them there. Very excited. Again, we're starting in Brooklyn, then Chicago, then Seattle, then LA, then Dallas. Tickets are on sale down below. I can't wait to meet all the muckers. Thank you so much to everyone who's got their tickets already. I'm working on the most deranged show of all time. Very excited for that. So, let's get into it. Now, if you do not recall, this was a while ago, Casey Neistat announced that he was making a documentary on David Dobrik. Now, the documentary was supposed to be following David Dobrik's huge rise on YouTube and everything that came within that. Now, it premiered at South by Southwest, I think was the film festival, like 2 years ago. Maybe a year ago or 2 years ago or something like that, right? And it got amazing feedback. Like, we're going to go through some of the reviews. And because of these reviews, we can kind of sense what the documentary was going to be. Ultimately, it seems that the documentary focused and was initially supposed to be just covering the rise of David Dobrik in his career. And it seems that the first half of the documentary is definitely that, talking about his career. Apparently, a lot of people in his life were interviewed, like his family and old school teachers and stuff like that. And then the other half of the documentary, from kind of what we know, focuses on the Dirty Dom situation. Now, if you do not know the Dirty Dom situation, it's been a while since we covered it, but it was where in a vlog of David Dobrik's, there is girls that were, sleeping with Dirty Dom, or in some way being made to feel uncomfortable, or literally being flat out by Dirty Dom. And this was all happening in a David Dobrik vlog. And we have the Business Insider article right here from Kat Tembarge. Insider investigation. A woman featured on YouTube star David Dobrik's channel says she was raped by a Vlog Squad member in 2018, the night they filmed a video about group sex. So apparently the second half of the documentary focuses on this, and that David Dobrik was overseeing it all, recording it for content. And apparently there were mentions of Jeff in there as well. There was apparently a lot that was going on. Let me turn this fan on because, damn, it is warm in this room. So this is what, obviously, the documentary was starting to be about in the end. And the more that Casey got into it, the more Casey, discovered. And therefore it got, messier and messier. But here's the thing. It premiered at a huge film festival. And the reaction was amazing. Like, we have articles from big names like Variety being like, Under the Influence, which is the name of the David Dobrik documentary, is an absorbing, unsettling documentary portrait of the YouTube star David Dobrik. We have another one, Under the Influence review. Casey Neistat's David Dobrik doc is a bone-chilling look at living for views. And so we now have Casey Neistat. Shout out to Spill Some Tea With Me, always on TikTok. You always get this shit up so quick. I don't know how you do it. They posted this clip from an interview that Casey Neistat has just done, where he talks about the fact that he doesn't ever think the documentary will be released, and that he's actually kind of protecting David in a way. And we're going to watch this clip, and I'm actually, sorry, let's read one of the reviews first. This has pissed me off to my core, because to me, it is literally just Casey Neistat protecting David Dobrik, which he will proudly tell you himself, for, in my opinion, the sake of what? Just keeping things nice behind the scenes? You've already premiered this documentary. It is ready to go. Literally, places have been begging to have this on their streaming services. People have been begging to have this on their streaming services. Casey Neistat, you are choosing not to platform this story anymore when it's already done and it has already had an impact. You're choosing not to by protecting David Dobrik. Why? I believe that there's some sort of deal going on behind the scenes. I don't know if there's been cease and desist. I don't know if there's been lawsuits. I don't know if there's whatever. That Casey Neistat suddenly doesn't know what he's going to do with this documentary. That a couple of years ago, he was very confident in premiering at a fucking film festival with all the media there to talk about how fucking amazing it was. Let's read this one. And then we're going to get to him basically saying that, oh, well, it'll probably never be released. Dumb. Okay. On July 30th, 2015, a dough-faced YouTuber, David Dobrik, posted his first video. and then it's a little intro, whatever, okay? So, live by the views, die by the views. So, 40-year-old web video elder, oof, brutal. Casey Neistat began making a documentary about the young content, kingpin in an effort to understand the next generation of internet influencers. And at some point soon thereafter, a 23-year-old senior reporter, damn, at Business Insider, Kat Tembarge, published an article that threatened to deplatform Dobrik's empire overnight. Live by the views, die by the views. For many of the extremely online people born after the year 2000, Under the Influencer offers a closer look at the cultural history that's already close to their hearts, less valuable for Neistat's insight than for his access. Not that it seems particularly difficult to sell a kid like Dobrik the idea of participating in a documentary about himself. Gag. For the rest of us people who tend to only use YouTube for normal stuff like movie trailers and old clips of different shows, this film provides a bone-chilling biopsy of the narcissism that's quietly, there across Gen Z's celebrity industry people that are in it, like David Dobrik and stuff like that. It's showing how narcissistic that is at its core. All right. So, more valuable for Neistat's perspective than any of his other characters because Neistat is from a different generation of YouTube, which is why people were so excited for this. It's not that millennials are unaware of people like David Dobrik, we invented him, or scandalized by the chaotic selfishness of the click economy they, inherited from us. And Casey Neistat is savvy enough to recognize as much. Under the Influence never panders to any of its various audiences in order to get its point across, which allows the film to sidestep the whole won't someone think of the children that tends to accompany most docs about online stuff that goes on. At the same time, Casey Neistat understands that every community has developed its own internet. He knows firsthand that earth-shaking news in one corner of Twitter may not even be on the For You page of another. You know what I mean? Like, stories are big, and they can be big within their own communities, all right? The upsetting power of Casey Neistat's documentary may be expressed through David Dobrik's toxic persona and the horrific details of the twins' missteps that threaten to bring him down. But it's rooted in the same, algorithmic of digital culture that we tend to associate with the red and blue political divide. It's bad enough that people are getting their own facts, and it's even worse that they're, getting themselves off in their own little ecosystems. Ecosystems in which accountability is determined by the small handful of advertisers, and attention isn't just the product, it's also how you pay for it. It's the texture of the social fabric itself. Film Twitter might, be a layer of hell that not even, Dante could have fathomed, but at least it's, undergirded by art. So it's basically talking about these different communities, right? And then we see David Dobrik in Under the Influence, I guess. All right. This isn't some kind of dirty secret in the world of like and subscribe. David Dobrik literally wears a sweatshirt that says views across his chest. And the only decor on the walls of his condo were, signs that said clickbait and stuff. People like David Dobrik rely on the belief in their own watchability. All right. So, in the early scenes in which Drake and Josh star Josh Peck exalts David Dobrik's primitive appeal as a legitimate superpower, he's not watching Goddard films, casts a long shadow over the smooth-brained shenanigans to come, and the alleged sex crime they lead to. Concerned that the Vlog Squad might not be responsible enough to shoot an alcohol-fueled group sex episode starring David Dobrik's most predatory friend and few starry-eyed young fans, go back to your Blu-ray of Goodbye to Language, Boomer, so basically talking about, what was to come with Dirty Dom. So it basically goes on to talk about this night and the Dirty Dom and the filming and stuff, and I just wanted to kind of read that initial part because I think it was important in showing that the documentary was also going to focus on this Dirty Dom Business Insider article. So we now have it confirmed from people that were there that that was a focus in the documentary. So why, Casey Neistat, are you now not going to publish? All these places want this documentary. We know that it now exposes things to do with the Dirty Dom night, and you're choosing, after it's already completed and the response has been great on your side as a filmmaker, you're choosing not to distribute that. So let's hear his reason for it, shall we? This will be good.
Yeah. Another big project you took on was the documentary about David Dobrik. I mean, you put so much work into that. You hired translators to interview his parents. You went back to Illinois. You've interviewed his high school teachers.
So again, he's literally interviewed so many people in David's life for this. So he's done a lot of work for this as well, that he's choosing not to put this out there. But it's already been in film festival. Why would that be? What does David Dobrik have on him behind the scenes? Or what does he want from David Dobrik? Or is there something to do with the victims that they're now no longer allowed to speak about it? Maybe there's a settlement. Who fucking knows? But I'm going to be thinking.
Coaches, but you also
said back to Slovakia.
I mean, you just put so much work into that documentary, but I thought it was also fascinating. I found this quote where you said, I don't think that documentary will ever see the light of day, at least not on your YouTube channel. Can you tell us, like, how did you decide to do that? What were the turns that it took, and why?
Yeah, so it's probably the most conflicted thing in my career that I've ever experienced, and I remain wildly conflicted about it to this day. I was running this morning with my buddy Oscar. Just finished a feature film, and he's like, "I'm not sure what festival we're going to put it in, and what happened to your movie, by the way?" And he asked me today, and I thought about today, but the short of what the movie is, it's a feature-length documentary. It's a very formal documentary. It's not a YouTube video. And I wanted to tell the story of what it means to become the biggest YouTuber in the world. And I met David Dobrik when he was really starting out on YouTube. And I think that to this day, notwithstanding the problematic stuff, the problematic content that he made, I think he is the greatest comedian that YouTube has ever had. The screaming to the folks at home, you're hearing.
No, we can't just pause at that for a second. He's the greatest comedian YouTube's ever seen. The guy that doesn't even make the jokes, he just in the background when he pokes the other people to make the jokes. At its core, that is so incorrect. David Dobrik isn't even the funny one in his videos. Now, Casey, I feel like he has something on you for you to be talking like this. This is just straight up fucking BS. He's the greatest comedian on YouTube. The only times he's tried to be funny on YouTube were those old racist skits he did. Then he switched over to other people making the jokes while he laughs. So clock that bullshit.
In the background is across the street from my office is a Halloween haunted house. No one's being murdered.
That's interesting timing.
But David is just the comedic timing, everything about his videos are unique, and to this day, nothing's even come close to replicating them.
Thank God.
Documenting him and his growth. And sure enough, in the time that I started documenting him, he became like one of the biggest celebrities YouTube had ever seen. He exploded on the scene. And I was so excited to make that movie. The ugly stuff and the good stuff. And I was very confrontational with him, even though he's my friend and I loved him very much. I never.
I guess maybe there's a reason. He is your friend and you want to protect him.
Hid from any of the controversy of who he was. And then as we were finishing that project, two really cataclysmic things happened. One of which was that one of the cast members, David's videos had a large cast. One of the cast members who David had excommunicated from because he was so problematic, it came out that there were very, very legitimate sexual assault allegations against one of his cast members. And that's an oversimplification. There were videos made. There was certainly wrongdoing on myriad people's behalf, including David making a very tongue-in-cheek video about it, even though he didn't understand the totality of the situation.
Why are you making excuses for him? You're like, David made a really, tongue-in-cheek video addressing it, but, he didn't understand the severity. Casey, this is such a bad look for you. This is such a bad look.
Very complicated. But the short of it is, there was a bad guy that was platformed by David unknowingly.
Unknowingly? Are you fucking kidding me? Oh my God. Even after the documentary that focuses on all what Dirty Dom is, you're saying that, but David he was unknowing about all this. He recorded Dirty Dom that night.
That guy did really bad things, and David dealt with it very poorly. I never make excuses for him or how he dealt with it, but those are the sort of the facts on the ground. And it sort of left me sitting there being like, well, I've just spent the last 2.5 years of my life. What do we do now? And I remember talking with my editorial team, and it's like, this has to be included, but how much of the movie does this need to be? And I remember my editor said to me,
How much does this need to be?
it's the whole movie. And I think that he's right. He's completely right. How do you possibly tell the story of this person's rise without, being abundantly clear, like the negative implications and what can manifest, like what can happen?
What can manifest or what was allowed to happen? This isn't a story of every single person who's been successful on YouTube has facilitated their friends to be able to do this to women. So take that one fucking back.
So that's the movie that we made. And at the time, it was very clear to me that the most responsible thing I could do was let David speak for himself. Obviously, had a lot of editorial input on it. I made the movie, but I don't talk in the movie. You don't see me in the movie. And I wanted to give David the greatest opportunity I could to speak for himself. And he didn't do a good job. He didn't do a good job at all. He certainly,
So how lucky is David Dobrik that he did a bad job in this documentary with the interviews, which is what we can only assume, and you're choosing not to publish it to protect him because he didn't do a good job? Isn't he so lucky that it was you who made it, and not anyone else? Yeah.
There were a lot of opportunities for him to really, I think, demonstrate a level of understanding and stuff like that. And I don't know the reason why, too young or hubris or myriad other factors.
He said earlier, I'm not making excuses for him, but he is not.
And I just gave him opportunity after opportunity. And eventually it was like, look, this is what it is. And we made that movie. And I think it told the truth of what happened. I mean, it was not my words. It was the people in it telling the truth of what they experienced. And it really shows sort of the fall, the cataclysmic fall of one of the greatest, biggest creators of our time. Self-inflicted fall. At the same time, too, one of the cast members in his videos was injured, almost to death, was almost killed while shooting a stunt. So David was facing all this at the same time, and this is while I'm making my documentary. So that's what the story was. And I finished it because I can't not finish something. I think it's important to finish it. And we premiered it at South by Southwest Film Festival, and there was some talk of selling it to a proper distributor, but I didn't have a lot of enthusiasm for it, and I still don't know why I don't put it out there. I think it's because maybe some part of me, as much as I'm ashamed to admit it, is because I still very deeply love and care for David, and maybe it's about protecting him from himself. But I also feel responsibility to the victim, who I spoke with off the record and showed her the movie before a single person saw it to get her blessing and understanding. And I think that she's very generous in letting...
Isn't it so fucking crazy? And how dare you bring up the victim? Because he's saying, I showed the victim the documentary, wanted her blessing. I spent much time talking to her off camera, but I'm not going to post this because I want to protect David. Well, then you don't care about the victim. And stop pretending like you do. And I can't believe that you just admitted both those things back to back. You suck. You suck.
Me share her story, and I didn't follow through with that. So I'm extremely conflicted about it.
What's your relationship like with David Dobrik now?
It's non-existent. I think that, when the movie was done, I showed it to him. He's not happy with it. And that's it. I made it clear to him that if he ever wants to reach out, I'm still the same person, and I'm always here and available.
That's so... Oh my God, look how big the cup looks. So bad to admit all that. You literally said the reason you're not posting it is because you have so much love for him and you want to protect him. In a documentary that is talking about him literally observing, filming, and making money off of women being by his cast members. Oh, but you love him. This is so bad. So bad. And how dare you then bring up the victim again and be like, we talked off camera, I showed her it beforehand so that I could get her blessing and stuff. You don't care about that. You literally could not give a fuck about that because you then followed that up with, so I guess I'm just not posting it because, I still have love for David. I don't know what he thought he did with that, but it was a terrible thing to say. Muckers, we'll leave this here. I will see you in my next one. I hope you're all doing very well. Not great. Goodbye.